Imagine a quiet suburban afternoon shattered by grief, where a family gathers to bury a loved one in their own backyard, only for an entitled neighbor to unleash chaos. That's what happened to me, a father mourning his youngest son, when my older boy Thomas became the target of unfounded suspicion. As shovels hit the earth and tears flowed, sirens wailed in the distance. Cops summoned by a woman who saw our black family as a threat. But she had no clue who I really was. Stick around. This tale of racial injustice and unexpected justice will leave you questioning the hidden biases in everyday America. Before we dive in, comment which country you're watching from. Let's see how far this story travels. It all started in a pristine gated community on the outskirts of Atlanta, where manicured lawns and strict HOA rules masked deeper divisions. I had moved my family there years ago, seeking a fresh start after rising through the ranks in law. As a black man who'd clawed his way to becoming the state's attorney general, I knew the neighborhood's polished facade hid undercurrents of exclusion. Whispers and sideways glances followed us from day one, subtle reminders that our presence disrupted the unspoken order. My sons, Thomas and Michael, grew up navigating this world. Thomas, the elder at 28, was steady and resilient, always protective of his younger brother. Michael, just 25, had been the light of our lives, vibrant, ambitious, until a sudden illness stole him away. We chose a private burial in our backyard, a tradition rooted in our heritage, to honor him intimately amid the blooming azaleas he'd loved. The HOA bylaws allowed it with prior notice, which I'd meticulously filed. But across the fence lived Karen, the self-appointed guardian of neighborhood standards. In her mid-50s, with a perpetual scowl and a clipboard always at hand, she patrolled like a sentinel, quick to cite minor infractions. I'd seen her eyeing our gatherings before, her discomfort palpable whenever our extended family visited. Little did I know, on that fateful day, her biases would erupt into something far more sinister, turning our moment of sorrow into a battlefield of racial prejudice. As we prepared the site, curiosity built. What would push her over the edge? The tension simmered from the moment we began. The sun hung low, casting long shadows over the yard as family members arrived in subdued waves, their faces etched with quiet devastation. Thomas took charge, his broad shoulders bearing the weight of arrangements, positioning the simple casket, arranging flowers, and ensuring the ground was ready. He'd always been the rock, especially after Michael's diagnosis, but grief had hollowed his eyes, making him move with a deliberate slowness that spoke of unspoken pain. Karen's presence loomed early. From her porch, she watched like a hawk, her binoculars glinting in the light. It wasn't unusual. She'd complained before about noise from our barbecues or the suspicious cars of visiting relatives. But this was different. Our gathering wasn't a party. It was a farewell. As the first guests parked along the curb, she paced her driveway, phone in hand, her lips pursed in disapproval. I caught glimpses of her through the fence slats, her agitation growing with each arrival. Why us? The answer lay in the color of our skin, the unspoken rule that black families in nice neighborhoods were perpetual outsiders, their every action scrutinized for threats that didn't exist. As the burial commenced, Thomas knelt to lower the casket, his hands trembling slightly on the ropes. The air thickened with emotion, the soft rustle of leaves the only sound breaking the hush. That's when Karen's suspicion boiled over. She marched to the edge of her property, peering over with undisguised disdain, her face flushing as if our private ritual offended her very existence. In her mind, perhaps, a group of black mourners equated to something criminal, loitering, trespassing, or worse. Racial profiling wasn't new to us. Thomas had endured it before, pulled over for driving while black in this very suburb. But during a funeral, the injustice gnawed deeper, amplifying the grief. Minutes ticked by, and suddenly her call was made. We didn't hear it, but the shift was palpable, her triumphant stance as she retreated indoors, waiting for reinforcements. Thomas paused, sensing the change, his brow furrowing as he glanced toward her house. The emotional stakes rose, our sacred space felt invaded, the burial tainted by her entitlement. Family members exchanged uneasy looks, the weight of historical injustices pressing down, generations of black families disrupted, their pain dismissed. Would the cops arrive and escalate this into a nightmare? The uncertainty built, layer by layer, as sirens echoed faintly in the distance, drawing closer. Thomas stood taller, protective instincts kicking in, but the tension coiled like a spring, ready to snap. The sirens grew deafening, piercing the fragile veil of our morning. Two police cruisers pulled up abruptly, lights flashing in a garish display that turned our backyard into a spectacle. Officers emerged, hands hovering near holsters, their postures rigid with preconceived notions fed by Karen's frantic report. She had painted us as intruders, a suspicious gathering disrupting the peace. Code for racial bias wrapped in HOA jargon. Thomas froze mid-motion, the shovel still in his grip, his face a mask of restrained fury as the cops approached the fence, demanding explanations. In that heartbeat, the injustice peaked. Our family, already fractured by loss, now faced the barrel of systemic racism head-on. The officers scanned the scene, their eyes lingering on Thomas longer than necessary, assessing him as the potential threat Karen had described. He set the shovel down slowly, deliberately, knowing one wrong move could ignite catastrophe. Echoes of too many stories where black men in grief became statistics. Karen watched from her window, smug satisfaction evident, oblivious to the storm she'd unleashed. But then, the revelation hit. As the lead officer questioned the gathering's purpose, I stepped forward from the shadows, my presence commanding attention. They didn't recognize me at first, dressed in simple mourning clothes, blending with the family. When I revealed my identity, producing my credentials as the Attorney General, the air shifted dramatically. Shock rippled through the officers. Karen's expression twisted from triumph to terror as she realized her grave error. The cops backpedaled, apologies tumbling out, but the damage was done, the burial interrupted, our pain amplified by her weaponized prejudice. Thomas met my gaze, a silent acknowledgement of the power imbalance we'd long fought. In that intense standoff, years of suppressed rage and resilience collided, exposing the raw nerve of racial entitlement in America. With the truth laid bare, the officers dispersed quickly, their cruisers retreating as if fleeing a mistake too big to own. Karen slunk back into her house, the weight of consequences dawning on her, potential charges for false reporting, amplified by my position. I ensured an investigation followed, not out of vengeance, but to dismantle the biases that allowed such an act. Thomas resumed the burial, his movements steadier now, as if the confrontation had forged a new resolve. We laid Michael to rest under the fading light, the earth accepting him gently, our family drawing closer in shared defiance. In the days that followed, the incident rippled outward. HOA meetings buzzed with discomfort. Karen faced formal reprimands and community backlash, her entitlement exposed for what it was, a veil for racism. My office pursued broader reforms, advocating for anti-bias training in neighborhoods like ours, turning personal pain into policy change. Thomas, inspired, began volunteering with civil rights groups, channeling his grief into advocacy. Our story became a quiet catalyst, reminding others that silence perpetuates injustice. Yet, the emotional scars lingered, the interruption of our farewell, a stark symbol of how racism invades even the most intimate spaces. Inspired by true events where Black families endure profiling during life's hardest moments, this tale underscores a painful reality. Entitlement often masks deeper prejudices, weaponizing systems against the vulnerable. But it also shows resilience, how authority, when wielded justly, can tip the scales. What if your own grief was disrupted by baseless suspicion? How many more stories like this go untold? Reflect on that, and let's commit to challenging biases in our communities. If this resonated, like, share, and comment below. Have you faced similar injustices? Together, we can amplify these voices and drive real change.